Good afternoon and welcome to our channel.
Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
All right, once again, good afternoon to our show. It is Friday, September 2nd. The Labor Day weekend is right upon us, and school will be starting next week, if I'm not mistaken. So everybody get ready for school and watch out for those speed cameras. They're now 24 hours. I am Robert Kress, political reporter for several newspapers, including Parrot TV, as you see here. I am the co-host of this show, and let me introduce my other co-host, Anthony RIVIECCIO, Mr. Northwest Bronx Democrats. Anthony, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday.
Is that the whole introduction, Anthony?
No, sir. I apologize. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. Please forgive me. I guess Robert Press and I are still in this coffee mode, as you can see. I think Robert and I drank some Krabby Aunt Patty coffee, and we're having some side effects. My name is Professor Anthony RIVIECCIO. As most people know, I have 3 lives. My first life today is, of course, being the founder of Northwest Bronx Democrats on this show. My second and third life, of course, is I am a professional financial advisor for RIVIECCIO Financial Advisors, and I'm also a teacher at both Herbert H. Lehman College as well as Monroe College for personal finance.
And Anthony's key trademark now is the mask. He is known as Mr. Mask.
I'm known as, that's right. I have a very simple philosophy with the mask. As the numbers come down, the mask comes down. And the numbers go up, the mask goes up.
Well, they're coming down slowly but surely, with a warning that there might be another variant of Omicron coming around. So,
exactly, which is why it's here instead of here.
Okay, so let's get into our show. Anthony, let's talk about your favorite subject, Bidenomics. What's happening in the country?
My favorite subject, Bidenomics. Well, you know, Bob, you caught us on a lucky day today, right? Being Friday, the end of the week. If our audience doesn't know, for today, right, only Friday, and of course the market's open from 9:30 till 4 p.m. today. But as we speak, the market is up 1%. And part of the reason for that is because some of the U.S. job numbers came out this morning, and they actually showed very positive economic growth. Job numbers were roughly 350,000. They were estimated at 250,000. So our economy at the moment seems to be humming along. There are a number of defects within the report, more of which I'll go over at Financial Focus University today. But I'll mention one as an example. You know, again, we are in a situation where, and I think it's a bigger question situation where, you know, how do we deal with the economy from both an executive and legislative end, and then a Federal Reserve Board end. So, for example, using one indicator, our wages month over month, year over year are continuously going up. They're going up at a clip of about 4, 5, 6% a year, depending on what job you have. Now, generally speaking, those are wonderful numbers. People would be tremendously happy, except that inflation is double that, right? So you're still not making enough money to go to the local bodega, right? So who's in charge of inflation? Both the government, but in writing, the Federal Reserve. So you sort of got this government fight going on, you know, where, of course, Joe Biden is very happy. The economy's moving along, even though it's an inflation-related, you know, economy that's booming along, it's still booming along and people are working. But at the same token, as the economy is doing this, you have the Federal Reserve Board that's saying, well, we're going to stop the choo-choo train because we're going to make higher interest rate. We're going to make higher interest rates, so we'll stop the choo-choo train. Is that good or bad? Oh, of course, only time can tell. But this is where I believe we're at in the economy now, and anyone that tracks the markets knows that we've had a lot more bad days than good days, which is why still for the year, from the beginning of the year, we're down. But on our show, and to answer the original question about Bidenomics for the week, I think the only real positive and not doing with the economy, but in regards to Joe Biden's policy, and I'll be mentioning this more on our show later this afternoon, is the student debt uh, philosophy. All the qualifications aside, which I'm still trying to understand some of them myself, but qualifications aside, basically this program is geared for people that have loans of $10,000 to $20,000 a year, depending on qualifications, right? Anyone that makes income less than $75,000 shouldn't even think of, more than 75,000 is going to have issues within itself. But the U.S. government just came out with some national figures that if true, these proposals will help an immediate 300,000 U.S. citizens. So I think, of course, that's a good thing. It's a good start. It's not they're not totally finished, as I said to you off camera. And I'm glad to know that the state of New York was one of the states that picked up on it right away, that the student loan might be federally tax deductible, but it is not. It is in the state of New York, but on a national level, it is still not state tax.
What about the city?
I do presume states will change it as we go along.
Anthony, what about the city of New York? Will they tax it?
I believe the city's going to defer to the state. This is going to be one of those scenarios where, when you look at our New York State tax platform, it's pretty much a state-driven platform, with, of course, New York City being a part of that.
Now, Joe Biden gave a speech the other night. Did it help or hurt the economy? Well, obviously, it helped it if it's going up. But any comment?
No. Of course, now we're talking forecasting, so even I can't tell you 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But I would beg to say, as I said earlier, I believe it was the job numbers that came out at 8:30 this morning that gave it a oomph. Before 8:30, the pre-market works flat. So this wonderful speech he gave last night, which some people think he alienated half of America on, really didn't do anything to the market. But the job numbers coming out very good at 8:30 in the morning made the markets look wonderful at 9:30, and still looks wonderful now.
Well, gas prices have come down from over $4 a gallon. By me, they're $3.69 a gallon, where it was originally at $2.19 a gallon. So
now, Bob, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm going to help you a little bit with that. To get to $4, there were moments where it was close to $5.
Right.
So let's use 5 as just a general number, right? Just a general number. Now, you said, if I heard you correctly, your last gas quote was at $3.60.
$3.69.
Okay, let's say 370. Let's say 370.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what is that? That's a 23% discount, right? Now, question for you. What was the federal gas tax that they eliminated?
What was it? 18 cents?
No, it was 18%. Right? It was 18% out of every dollar, right? That was part of your answer. Because remember, and ladies and gentlemen, please remember, lower gas prices do not mean inflation has gone down. If you don't believe me, feel free to go to your local grocery store to find out. But generally speaking, to answer your question, because it is a complicated answer, There goes part of your answer right there.
Right, Anthony, because as you say, going to the grocery store, the old 99-cent bag of chips that you used to buy is now $2 and something. So it varies. That's on sale, $2.
I'm going to lose weight. I generally lose weight because I try to exercise. Now I'm going to lose weight because I just can't afford to go to the supermarket anymore.
Well, maybe, Anthony, we can drive our electric cars to the supermarket, because by 2035, California is going to eliminate gas-powered cars being sold. And I'm sure that the rest of the country will follow, especially New York. But the problem is, California has already instituted a warning. Please do not charge your electric cars between 2 and 4 p.m. So if they can't handle the cars that they have right now, the electric cars, what are they going to do when they get to 2035? And all you're doing is taking that gasoline that the car used to burn and putting it into a power plant to burn to give you the electricity. Am I right on that?
I don't think you're right or wrong, and I don't think I'm right or wrong either, partially because we're talking about a 2050 scenario of which both you and I aren't going to be around. So I don't know if it's going to be electric cars, or we could go back to the 1800s. It might be dune and buggy, right? Why not? Right? Why not? Because we got one major problem. His name is called Putin, right? So we don't know what's going to happen between now and 2035 or 55 or whatever you just said.
Or maybe the next version of whatever this flu is will come out and nobody will be here.
Well, you know what, Bob? I think we're up to, what is it called now? BA7, right? Time to put up the mask a little bit, right?
We're up to 8 or 9 already.
Oh, excuse me. Let me put it up to the eyes. All right, here you go. All right, very good.
But, all right. I mean, is there anything else nationwide that we should be talking about?
Oh, Lord have mercy. There's a number of things that.
Well, we see that the immigrants from Texas are now going to Chicago instead of New York. So, he's trying to be a little fairer and say, okay, we already shipped so many, thousands of immigrants to New York. Let's send some to Chicago.
I wish you would have been my best friend. I really do. I wish you would have been my best friend. You know about my current personal problem, right? He would have been the perfect guy, right? He would have taken the girlfriend, put her in a car, and just ship her up, right?
So let's go into the city and local politics, because Mayor Adams, we don't know what's up with Mayor Adams. He's telling us that the subways are safe, but subway crime goes up. He's telling us we want, to build more in the city, and that's affecting the Bronx right now, because the Bronx has been dumped on by Mayor de Blasio for almost his whole entire 8 years. Now Eric Adams is behind a project that's called the Bruckner upzoning, all right, which will bring over 300 so-called affordable housing units to the east side of the Bronx on Bruckner Boulevard, where a superfood town is currently at. Now, I did a story. It's in the Bronx Chronicle. It was sent here. It was on my blog at www.100%.blogspot.com, and you may want to see it. There's lots of articles on there that I put. I cover a lot of community events and cover the governor. And also, for Anthony's sake, I put the daily COVID numbers on there, what the daily rates are, and the Bronx is at about 6.60% right now. However, on Saturday and Sunday, the governor doesn't tell us what happened. We have to wait till Monday for the COVID numbers, and they could go really down or really up. But Anthony, any opinion on this Bruckner upzoning?
I have a lot of opinions about the Bruckner upzoning, but I'm actually going to make a comment on something you mentioned earlier, which is a bigger concern. A lot of people don't know that, people might be saying to themselves, well, why do we need all of this housing we've had the last 10 years? And the reason why is because our Bronx has actually grown in the last couple of years, especially. We're now, a decade over decade, an increase of 13%. You might say to yourself, well, what does that mean in bigger terms? Well, what it means in bigger terms is that since 1900, if we are decades that we did grow, we grew never at a rate higher than 10%. Our average was around 5%. So in the last 10, 15 years, many parts of the northern sections of the Bronx, as well as the southern sections of the Bronx, have increased 3 times over. And I think that's a bigger concern, not just for the residents and the businesses of the Bronx, but also for the government of the Bronx, because now you need resources for these new residents.
Well, the City Planning Commission voted on this and they passed it. It's now up to the City Council and the local councilwoman, Marjorie Velazquez, to see if she can stop it, as she says she's against the project. Our borough president, Vanessa Gibson, said, well, I'd like to make some adjustments to it. I think this building's a little too high. Let's make it a little lower. Let's do this change and that change. However, the City Planning Commission just ignored her comments and went with the original plan. Then there's talk that this guy, who is the owner of the food town, lied to a bankruptcy court and said that, no, I'm not the owner of food town. I don't owe all of that money. And there's other talk that he's just going to flip the property to another developer. So, it could be good for the community. It could be good for the city, or it could be bad, because there was just a union protest for the upzoning at this food town. And you had Local 79 of the laborers, and you had 1199 SEU there. You had a couple of, a couple of unions there, 32 BJ. But you see, there's one problem. All these unions are going and rallying for that food town, but that food town's a non-union shop. Those are non-union employees.
And Bob, you actually bring up the bigger problem, which is, and I talk about this a lot when I'm giving lectures or when I'm in political meetings, that we have to stop treating the Bronx as a second-class citizen. That's why I don't go into your argument about electric cars. At this current rate, you will never see electric cars in the Bronx. They will be in Manhattan, because we are now back to a tale of two cities. When you create affordable housing, and I don't care what color birthday cake you use, you can call it junior housing, senior housing, middle-aged housing, gray hair housing, whatever type of housing you want to call it, and you have a lottery component. Well, you know what, Bob? I don't think that lottery component applies to the upper class. I don't think that lottery component applies to the middle class. And if it means that it applies to the lower class that needs assistance, that's fine. Let's give them assistance. But part of that assistance is allowing them and giving them the tools so they can grow to their highest potential. I see so many times everybody goes to these Bronx government job fairs and they're promoting them. And what do I see as a job? There's nothing wrong with a sanitation job. I was a housekeeper in a hospital during my college years and got paid well and was in a union, etc. There's nothing wrong with a sanitation job. But as I ask all of these muckety mucks, well, what about technology jobs, right? What about, there are a number of jobs that are growing in salary that Bronxites should be going after. But when you push us into menial, lower class related jobs, well, that's where we're going to stay at.
Well, Anthony, years ago, there used to be trade schools in the public schools. All right, Kennedy High School had an auto shop. Others, they taught auto, and auto mechanics make good money. All right, or plumbers, electricians make good money. Okay, so, but, it was decided that the public schools are not the place to teach, trades to children or students, and they want everybody to go to college, but not everybody can go to college. That's the problem. And when you look at the education,
I beg to differ with most of that statement. I mean, not just a college graduate myself, but of course, being in academia, I would say today, if you wanted to, regardless of your economic status, 8 out of 10 people in our city, if they wanted to, could walk into college tomorrow.
Correct, but they're not going to be prepared for it. They're not going to have the proper education for it. When we look at the student performance,
But that's a bigger problem than even the lower class. You might have heard this morning, our New York City math and reading
this is what I was getting into.
Prior to COVID, have gone down a whole grade level, and that would include a lot of the middle class too.
Right, and the Bronx as a whole before COVID in 2019, and I complained to then Chancellor Carenza, who all of a sudden disappeared, that Bronx student performance is 67%, while the rest of the city, the other four boroughs, are performing at 80, 82, 84, and 86%. And I guess you know which borough is 86%, it's Manhattan. But why is the Bronx so much lower performing than the rest of the city?
Well, you know, Bob, and let me just correct you about the prior chancellor. He didn't disappear. He's down in Texas making $1 billion with his former, what do I call her, assistant, who got paid almost just as good as he did. And now they're both living in Texas going, yeehaw, with everybody. So now, again, you know, as we were talking a moment ago, that's why, you know, when I had these conversations with our elected officials, this is part of the year that I come from, that, you know, you're giving away book bags or lunches like it's a recession. You know, like it's a recession and everybody's down in dirt. You know, we want to, you know, yes, everybody wants to make themselves better, but I didn't know here in the Bronx that everybody was in the dirt.
Well, Anthony, 25 years ago, I asked a city council person who was way out of office, and I asked that council person, why don't you educate the people? Why don't you make the schools better? And the answer was, we don't want to educate our people. We want to keep them the way they are and dependent upon us. This way, they'll keep voting for us. If we educate the people, then they won't vote for us.
No, Bob, I want to thank you for making that statement, because you just made my 26 years of self-employment even more enjoyable.
Okay, but that's been the problem. Some of our elected officials, when they get in, they want to stay there for life, unfortunately. Now we have in the city council term limits, and you know, maybe that's a good idea for all the other elected offices. All right, assembly members, we have people like Jeffrey Dinowitz who have been there almost 30 years. Okay, he's gained in power and everything, but you know what? He's lost in his own community, basically. All right, you want to go into it, Anthony?
Do I want to go into that?
How Jeffrey Dinowitz lost in his own community?
I'll briefly talk about that, but I will be more comprehensive when we get to the Northwest Bronx Democrat segment this week. The name of that segment is called "Are the Political Clubs in the Bronx Still Alive?" So to now go back to your question, you know, from a political point of view, Jeffrey, and I've said this on the record and off the record, and it freaks people out. I think Jeffrey sometimes deserves a lot of credit, meaning that if I lived in Riverdale having those interests for the last 30 years, and if I needed someone to represent those interests, I can't think of a better person than him. And what he did over time, and he deserves some congratulations on this, is that he has reformulated in those 30 years his own political base, predominantly through the Ben Franklin Club, and pretty much has run Riverdale politically for the last 30 years. In some districts, my district included, I always say there's not 3 government pipelines, there's district pipelines. But in the city of Riverdale, there's only one, and that's the Jeffrey Dinowitz choo-choo train. But as we've noticed in the last couple of elections, both city council as well as our past elections, that choo-choo train is not only starting to come off the tracks, but we're seeing that as Jeffrey's steering the choo-choo train and he's turning around to see if the rest of the train is still there, he's seeing another choo-choo train that's getting a little bit closer to him. So the politics of Riverdale, of which now, and I'll give you a little tip of what we're going to talk about at the segment, where I always like to call it a political tree, where Jeffrey basically has, just like every other assembly person picks their political tree of themselves, district leaders, state committee people, so a total of 5. Well, in that political tree, Jeffrey only has 2. So locally, yes, his political tree is right now on fire.
As we go throughout the Bronx, though, if in the South Bronx, we had Reverend Diaz as a big force, and I understand he's joined the Republican Party, basically. He's still a Democrat, but when you introduce Lee Zeldin into your church, and you then have other Republicans, and I understand he's backing the Republican candidate against Natalia Fernandez. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
Okay. He's also backed the Republican candidate in the 80th Assembly District, if I'm not mistaken, too. And
I think, and I don't want to speak for Reverend Diaz, but I think he would actually correct you a little bit, meaning that where he's done this through his clergy organization.
It's the conservative candidates.
Right. It's right. So I'm not a label guy, but if you had to give it a label, it would probably be more conservative.
Right. As we know, he's been a conservative from day one. All right. I just want, and while we're on the 80th Assembly District in a minute, there is a vacancy there from the assembly position that has to be filled. And there were several candidates, and the Bronx Times came out with a story yesterday that it's down to 3 candidates. It's down to John Zaccaro Jr., who is the chief of staff for Councilman Raphael Salamanca, Aisha Bravo, who is the district manager of Community Board 7, your board, and Bharati Kemcham, who has been in politics. She's now working for Patrick Jenkins. She has her own, dance studio, and she has a big following throughout the Bronx. Anthony, which of the 3 do you think is going to get the nod for, or will it be someone else for the 80th Assembly District on the Democratic line?
Robert, I'm almost scared to give you my thoughts on this because what I think is going to happen is that I think, in my opinion, the best person on that list who probably even deserves to be on that list, only if you're looking for a winner, probably won't be on that list because you have 2 other muckety-mucks that at least think they have positioned themselves for this upcoming decision by Bronx County, which I expect in the next couple of days. I'm going to refrain from saying anything more than that because, and now might be the best time to say it, our organization, which again I'll talk more on our segment, has endorsed a candidate, Ms. Phyllis Natasio. She is running for assembly person. Again, as you mentioned earlier, now that Krabby Aunt Natty has decided to hold the Senate seat as opposed to the assembly seat, well, of course, she has to give it up, and Bronx County and other interested parties are going to be making a decision who I guess would be the successor.
Well, Anthony, she doesn't have to give it up. What she can say is, I'm not running for state senator, and then they can fill that spot. All right.
Right.
We can
find this right, but that wasn't part of the plan. So we felt, right? I mean, our club being in the 80th Assembly District since 2008, that we didn't want to wait for a county to make a decision. As a matter of fact, our decision.
All right. Well, Anthony, I got to interrupt you, Anthony. We have to go to break right now. We'll continue this after our commercial break. Take it away, Mr. Producer. Well, let's keep talking, and he'll interrupt us then when he wants to. I thought we would go. This is normally our time to go to the commercial break. Maybe our producer
so where were we?
Is taking a little nap. I don't know, but let's continue. Then you were saying, Anthony, about your candidate.
Oh, so we decided as an organization we weren't going to wait for Bronx County, especially when we heard about these names prior, because at the end of the day, what we wanted and what we always want is what we call a community laden type person. And the people you mentioned are good people. They're great people. I know them all personally. But sadly, I know them all personally as muckety mucks. And I think our district are just tired of muckety mucky. So we decided to come out this week and support and endorse Phyllis for her candidacy because I won't go into her bio, but anyone that knows who we like to affectionately call Mother Tiz is a very loving, a very hardworking community woman that's lived in the Bronx for over 50 years, a school teacher, a parent, and is again, we'll go into that as the race goes on. But I think it's a wonderful, and again, let me emphasize, community choice. You live in that district. Let me ask you a very simple question. When was the last time, those three names you mentioned, right? When was the last time you seen them at a Pelham Parkway Neighborhood Association meeting?
We'll let you know right after our commercial. Okay.
I'll do Wheaties. No. So when was the last time, Bob? I'm going to venture to say you're going to probably mention one person, and that might have been in the last 9 months. But go ahead.
In a world where the quality of information available to poorer communities is doctored, tainted, and sometimes regressive, where the words fake news have come to mean other people's opinions, it is vital to rely on news platforms with journalists who have feet on the ground and can report the truth. New York Parrot, a New York-based national and global news outlet, is changing the narratives of media operations. We focus on the news that matters, like self-empowerment, entrepreneurship, finances, health, security, politics, and more. We strive to curb violence, racial and economic discrimination, and to promote peace and socio-economic development of multiculturally diverse world. As we give voice to the people, we also give your business a voice and make it heard. Get your products and services off the ground by advertising on our fast-growing platform. With so much of daily visits to New York Parrot, you can't afford to be invisible to prospective clients on the website they trust the most. Our posts reach millions of people across the New York State and around the world. Advertising on our new site will unlock an audience of thousands of potential customers on your doorstep. New York Parrot is born to prosperously speak tomorrow for the voiceless.
Are you curious about financial literacy? Then take a look at Professor Anthony RIVIECCIO's new program on Parrot TV. It's called Financial Focus University. This is an excellent program to learn about questions related to your own finances post-COVID, if how you can manage your money, how you can work with your tax situation. And this is an excellent and informative discussion of financial literacy. With Professor Anthony RIVIECCIO, your financial problems will be solved at Parrot TV with Financial Focus University.
All right, Anthony, continuing with what you were saying, you didn't hear who I thought was the best candidate. So let me say.
No, that's not what I asked you. And you're right, I didn't hear it, and I do want to hear it. But the question was, have any of those people been to a Pelham Parkway Neighborhood Association meeting?
Yes, John Sicaro Jr. has, because he lives in the Pelham Parkway neighborhood area.
Right, but from the beginning of the year to today, and presuming you meet monthly, that means you've had 5 to 6 meetings. Out of those 5-6 meetings, how many has he attended?
2. And he was at the book bag giveaway on Sunday last week.
Well, don't get me wrong. My mother.
Well, since he lives in the neighborhood, he brought his wife and children.
So 2 out of 6, 1/3. That's not bad. How about Miss Bravo?
She lives in the Bedford Park area,
I
in the Bronx Park East neighborhood area.
The
And she's
meeting.
been seen in the Bronx Park East area.
The Pelham Parkway Neighborhood Association meeting. You had 6 meetings. How many times was she there?
She was there at 0 times.
Okay, and the other candidate you mentioned, I believe Barati, how many times was she there?
Barati was involved with Community Board 11.
I didn't ask you about involvement. I'm talking about community meetings. See, Bob, this is the reason why we
She was at the Community Board meetings.
over a muckety-muck. We are looking for someone that is community grounded. So when they use the term quality of life, we know that they know that's what they mean. Quality of life doesn't mean a mask giveaway or a book bag giveaway. Not for someone on the ground. Okay, for a muckety-muck that's sitting in my office like I am at the moment, sure, I might come up with that. Why don't I just have a gloves giveaway, right?
Well, as I was saying,
community people.
Do you want to hear my choice for the position?
Well, I do. Yes, I do. But I just want to be clear with the numbers. So then, out of the 3, only 1 showed up in 2022, and that one person only showed up 1/3 of the time.
Correct. It's not though meetings. What it is being in the community, like I said.
Right.
Okay. All right. And the person who I feel has been in the community the most, or really more than any of those people, are myself. Okay. I believe that I would make an excellent assembly member for the 80th Assembly District. Okay. Because it's not just the Morris Park area, Bronx Park East area, Allerton area. It's also the area above you, Norwood. Okay. And I am familiar with all of these areas and know the problems of these areas. Okay. That's why I feel that I would, and I say, I'll leave that alone to the muckety-mucks, as you call them. And I've applied for Community Board 11 this year. It is September 2nd already. I haven't received my notice that, we're sorry, we couldn't put you on, but I haven't received the congratulations notice that you're on Community Board 11. Some people have been already put on Community Board 11, as the number, when you look at the website at board members, it was 33 they were down to, now they're up to 41. So there are 9 spots left on Community Board 11 to be filled, and I believe those are the spots by the borough president, because she had 9 choices as to the 8 choices by the 3 council members. So I'm just a community person, Anthony, looking to help my community here on the east side. And by doing that, and if you want to ask me how many meetings of the community board have I been at, I've been at almost all of the community board meetings. Okay. So nobody can say, well, and when I applied years ago, when Adolfo Carrion was the borough president, I was asked, well, you should attend community board meetings. I said, I attend most of the community board meetings. Oh, well, you're at the top of the list. You know what? Adolfo Carrion didn't put me on. Ruben Diaz Jr. put me on Community Board 8. Okay. And I enjoyed being a vice chair of the Traffic and Transportation Committee, vice chair of the Public Safety Committee, and the chair of the Budget Committee, which, by the way, Community Board 11 has a vacancy at the chair of the Budget Committee. I would fit right in there. And Al D'Angelo already has said, I would love you to be on the community board. We have a position just ready for you. You've been the budget chair, and we need a budget chair. So if the borough president is listening, that would be the position that I would probably be getting as chair of the Budget Committee and helping the community board in any way I can.
I don't want to wish you any bad luck. I really don't.
Oh no, I'm not. Hey, Anthony, it's not going to be either way. I don't care. I'm not.
No, Bob. I mean, according to your logic and according to your philosophy, there is still a mathematical chance.
Mm-hmm.
But I worry about that mathematics because I do know from past experience, sometimes you don't get what I call the full maximization of the board. So
no, you don't get the best people sometimes.
Well, well, people are different, but in the sense of maximizing, meaning that every board, I believe, has to have 50, but it's very rare that every board always carries 50. And there's a variety of different reasons for that. But is very rare. So even though Vanessa has 9 left that would make the 50, she might only maybe choose 2 or 3.
Well, Anthony,
or no.
the reason that some boards don't have 50 is because they don't get the applications from the people. There are certain boards where there are more applications than spots.
Right. No, there's a variety of different
boards.
things. I think in this case, though, and again, I wish you nothing but the best. But I think in this case, though, it's pretty clear that Ms. Gibson, even though her request has been declined as far as zoning amendments, is still with mayor on this project. So just political common sense now says, okay, well, if the project has to go through Community Board 11, and I got
it's Community Board 10.
I'm going to be sure that. Well, let me rephrase what I just said, because again, I live in Bedford Park, where it went from small town to Superdome, right? So as we basically know, or maybe you don't know, and I'll shock you in the audience, it's coming your way. So
I know.
The first, and it won't be the last. So
I know.
Vanessa knows this. Eric knows this. All the uppity muckety mucks knows this. So what they got to do is protect the game plan. How does the game plan get protected? Step 1, community board. You got 9 slots. She may not fill all 9, but I would presume whoever gets picked are going to be in that same supportive housing, God forbid, Bertha Lewis mindset.
Anthony, that's Community Board 10 where the Brooklyn zoning is going, up zoning. That's not Community Board 11. Community Board 11 has a project going up on Allerton Avenue.
Right.
All right, which is the old supermarket, the old D'Alessio supermarket, if people remember.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So you're telling me, right. So what are you saying? She's going to go to one district and not do the other?
No.
The West Side has been disseminated for the last 20 years. No one can blame our current leadership for that. No one can blame that, but it's a fact. So now they got to go to the East Side, and you see they're going to the East Side, and I'm guessing this means my segment is on. So, ladies and gentlemen,
take it away, Anthony.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Northwest Bronx Democrat segment. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a little bit of a good time for a moment, because let me give you some quick political Northwest and East Bronx history. Here in the Bronx, the northern section of the Bronx, we have been, I guess, in some ways very blessed. Being politically organized, although, of course, since the 1920s, going up and down as far as leading the votes of the Bronx. One thing that has happened in both sections, the West and the East, is that we have built up political clubs. And whether those clubs have great decades or not so great decades, they've been standing for quite a long time. But now in the last couple of years, these our northern clubs have had a variety of different issues. Some of them say it's because of COVID. Some people say it's because of incompetence. Ladies and gentlemen, let's look at 2 clubs in particular. Let's go to the next slide, please. We're going to, ladies and gentlemen, for a moment, talk about the Ben Franklin Club. The Ben Franklin Club is a wonderful club located in Riverdale, the west side of the Bronx. They have been around for quite a long time, and as we mentioned earlier in the show, Mr. Jeffrey Dinowitz, the assembly person, has had a very heavy hand in that club for the last 3 to 4 decades. Ironically, ladies and gentlemen, they lost their office recently. They do not have an office on 231st Street anymore. I've been notified that they have a P.O. box that I don't even think the P.O. box knows where the P.O. box is. How is that possible? How is that possible that a once 200-member club doesn't have a place to sit, doesn't have a place to organize, doesn't have a place to make phone calls? All of the things they used to do at one time that they didn't do now. So I guess maybe that's why in the last electoral cycle, where they all went out for Miss Camilio in the 33rd State Senate District, which now represents Riverdale, Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? That 200-member club must now be 4, because those were the only 4 people I saw, not throughout one Riverdale rally that they held, but 2 Riverdale rallies that they held. Oh, but ladies and gentlemen, you know what might be another reason why they're having some issues? Remember, as I said earlier, that political tree is really no longer Jeffrey, right? If Jeffrey only has 2 limbs of the 5, well, the Ben Franklin Club, ladies and gentlemen, is going to have a lot of problems. So let's look at the East Side, the Liberty Democrats, the East Side Club. It's a wonderful club. It was around since 2008. I was on the executive board as one of its founding fathers. The original plan at that time was to try to merge the East and the West Side. Well, in 2010, that plan backfired. However, the East Side still stayed as the nucleus. And over the course of time, they became very helpful. They became very helpful with the race of Naomi Rivera. They became helpful with some of the campaigns of Mark Jonai. But they don't meet at Jamel Towers anymore. Now, I don't know if they have a P.O. box. They do have an email, but they don't have a physical location anymore. They don't have the tools or apparatus to do some of the things that I said Ben Franklin used to do earlier that they don't do now. Rumors are that their membership is down up to 90%. And when you ask around town, well, who's the president? You get different names. You get Joe McManus, you get Christian Amato, you even hear the name of Kenny Augusto. And all I know is that in the last electoral race, where Liberty Democrats said we're going to put a name behind our flag, that person was Christian Amato. And they never took it off. And as we know, Christian lost. So our 2 clubs are sadly in a lot of trouble. Is it a generational thing? It could be. The young generation of today needs to go into both of these clubs and make them strong again. Robert?
Well, are you going to talk a little bit about your candidate in the 80th Assembly District?
Well, now might be the time to, I guess, enlighten our audience something that I mentioned earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll talk about this on future segments of the show, and we will have the candidate as on a future segment of our show. But as I mentioned earlier, ladies and gentlemen, the 80th Assembly District is very near and dear to us. A lot of our members in our organization live in the 80th Assembly District. Our average residency in that district is about 25 years. Now, granted, because of the way the district is cut, the West Side at one time represented up to 40% of the district. But sadly today, for a variety of different reasons, it is now 20%. But as we've learned, that 20% can be very, very strong, especially in this particular election. Now that the assembly seat is open, as I said earlier, we want a quality of life candidate. We, like most people, said, okay, there's going to be an open seat. We also know the district is not as liberal as other districts in the Bronx. So we want a quality of life candidate that will fit that billing. Bronx County still hasn't made a decision yet. And then, of course, about 2 weeks ago, the rumors of certain names started to come up. That article you referred to, Robert Press, didn't come out yesterday. It came out a couple of days ago, which actually seemed to confirm some of the names that I've heard. And it also confirms some of the names that I didn't hear. Or I should say that I heard, but don't seem to be on that list. So I guess we only got it so far. And again, John Zaccaro, wonderful family man. Barati, wonderful, wonderful community activist. Aisha Bravo, no comment.
No comment?
No comment. Because I believe the SCC or the FCC will take us off the air. So So what choice did we have? Phyllis Natasio, ladies and gentlemen, a community activist predominantly on the east side of the Bronx, has been doing the groundwork, not recently, ladies and gentlemen. As people on the east side know, she's been doing it for a decade. She has lived in the neighborhood for a decade. She has a parent and a school teacher where she works and grew up her children there for a decade. So when she came to us, as she's going to other community organizations looking for support, we decided, partially based on that article, on that county list, that we said, you know what, we're going to take a shot with Phyllis. Of course, Northwest Bronx Democrats is generally never highly popular with their initial picks. How can we forget what we chose in 2012, a young man by the name of Mark Jonai, that everybody, including Bronx County, said at that time, oh, he's a developer. We can't have a developer. We can't have real estate involved in politics. And I think especially the East Siders would love to have Mark back tomorrow. So we believe Phyllis is a grounded community activist that has a very good chance of winning that district. Robert?
Well, going back to Mark Jonai, you may have been the only club to endorse him. I was the only reporter that said he would win the race against what's her name, Naomi Rivera. All right, and I was correct on that. Back in 2016, I was the only reporter who said Donald Trump would be the president, and I was right on that. But Anthony is with the Northwest Bronx Democrats. He's endorsing his candidate. I am not endorsing Ms. Nastasio. I am a Democrat. I am waiting for the county committee call, and I will see who the pick of the 80th Assembly District County Committee is. And
Bob, remember, and I'm going to stress this all throughout the coming weeks, if you notice, and I did it by design, because this is how we feel about it, okay? I know we get caught up in political tags, but sometimes these political tags, we forget about things like quality of life. If our Democrats are not sweeping the streets, then you know what? I want an orange person to sweep the street. I want whomever to sweep the street. I want Joan Jetson to sweep the street. So, you know, you can say Democrat, you can say Republican, you can say conservative, you can say high horse, you can say the rent is too high, whatever tag you want to give it. No one can doubt that Tiz Nastasio has over a 20-year community record. So tell me a candidate, besides yourself, of course, that can match that resume.
Anthony, I'm not here to be a political consultant. I'm a media person. And as a media...
Are you curious about financial literacy? Then take a look at Professor Anthony RIVIECCIO's new program on Parrot TV. It's called Financial Focus University. This is an excellent program to learn about questions related to your own finances post-COVID, how you can manage your money, how you can work with your tax situation.